Yo guys, it's JD here again, back for another video, and actually a series of videos that I'm currently working on. But anyways, today's topic will be the historical and philosophical influences from real life on Dragon Ball, and specifically from Dragon Ball Super with the angels in their code. Many people always ask in the community, why doesn't Whis act when Beerus or Shen, the Universe 7 Kaioshin, fail to do their jobs? I argue that it's loosely based on some Western philosophy, specifically theology and Theodicy, which I will include in the main topic, or the reasons why Whis and the angels do not act. This is very interesting, I must say, and hopefully with the video's completion, I implore you guys to research this stuff on your own. But with that in mind, the basic outline of this video will be some brief exposition on philosophy, why it does relate to Dragon Ball, and then I'm going to cover a little bit of the Abrahamic religions just briefly, and then the actual reason, and then examples from the Dragon Ball story that are evidence for this. So anyways, what is philosophy? Philosophy is the curiosity of knowledge to explain everything that exists. It is the idea, it is the tradition of thought that predated science, right? Science owes its debt, like its way of handling matters in the world, from philosophy, which I'll briefly talk about. So, philosophy is curiosity of knowledge to explain things, basically. There are branches in philosophy, right? So we have metaphysics. It's a study of objective reality, right? The study of the universe, essentially, right? And they ask questions like, what is reality? Is there more than one? How do we relate to reality? Then you have epistemology, which is the study of knowledge. What is knowledge? How can we acquire it? Things like that. Then a branch in epistemology, which is again the study of knowledge, we have empiricism, which is a branch in epistemology that quantifies knowledge by means of sense impression and observations directly or indirectly. And this is actually the primary philosophy that embodies the sciences and the scientific method, right? So when we talk about telescopes, microscopes, electron microscopes, test tubes, beakers, all those things are tools which aid in our five senses, our way of measuring and perceiving things in the world around us. So this is one overlap between science and philosophy. Then you have rationalism, which is a branch in epistemology, again, the study of knowledge, that quantifies knowledge by deduction, induction, and essentially mathematics. So right, when we talk about math, we're talking about rationalist arguments, proofs, things like that, theorems. Then finally you have ontology, which is the study of being. The reason why I bring this up is because when we start talking about evil, which is the next part, we have to talk about what evil is, like what is it substantively, right? So ontology is the study of being and its relation to self. And one of the criteria that falls under that, one of the branches, is something called monism. Monism is the philosophical tradition that the world or reality is made of some concrete fundamental notion of substance, right, or matter, right? This is actually the philosophical root of what we would call today atomism, right? The idea that the universe is made up of fundamental discrete units of particles, right? This was actually originally a philosophical idea, in case you didn't know. Now, finally, the next part. Theodicy, right, or in this case, theology, right? So theology is the study of God, right? It's a study of God using arguments either from the Catholic Church, the Bible, the Quran, any kind of source material, and then you also use ideas from philosophers from the Greco-Roman worlds, like Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. The reason why this is important is because philosophically the development of God and the arguments for or against God are philosophical, right? Some of them are essentially based off these philosophers in mind. Why is this important? Well, one of the crises in theology, and this is why there's a thing called theodicity, or theodicity is essentially a branch in theology, which is a study of God. It is the subject area concerned with what we call the problem of evil, right? So the problem of evil is this idea that, you look at your daily life, right? You look on the news, and all you see is death, famine, illness, sickness, warfare, all these things that are essentially imperfect, right? We all understand this is like horrible things that happen in our daily life. And so people ask the question, where's God? Like, where does he fit into all this? Why is there evil? Right? And there's many explanations for this, but I'm not going to go too deeply into this. But the problem of evil is a argument that's thrown out, or that's thrown into the discussions. And so there's this branch in theology called Theodicy, which is the attempt to solve this problem. And so what the explanation for this is soul making. Soul making is the theory that evil has to exist so that humans can develop their souls by living and becoming good moral people. It gives humans a chance to learn from suffering and to develop moral virtues and other good qualities to have in society or as an individual. There are different kinds of theodicities, which are attempts to solve this problem, but I'm not going to go into that. But going back to Dragon Ball and how this actually relates, well, the angel law, in my opinion, is based off this, what we call the veil of soul making, going back to the soul making theory. So when we talk about the Eastern tradition of philosophy, there's this thing, if you ever study Taoism, Taoism is a Chinese philosophy associated with yin and yang, which is what we would call a dialectical monism. Monism, if you recall, was the idea that things are made up of smaller things, and the dialectical is referring to the fact that there's pairs and things, right? Everything comes in pairs. You break things down, you might have two opposite but charged things, right? And so you think of protons or electrons, right? Think of good and evil. Think of fire and cold. Growth and wearing away, right? These are all opposite but equivalent things that happen usually simultaneously across everything. And so Taoism is this reconciliation of that, right? Recognizing the cosmic yin and yang and the Tao, which is the way, right? I might make several videos on these things, but this is just the Eastern philosophy. This is how the Eastern traditions view evil, which is again part of the issue that I'm currently talking about. Evil in the East is actually not a substance, right? Just like with the West have a similar train of thought. Evil isn't substantively true, right? People are not intrinsically evil. They're not substantively made up of this thing called evil. This should be obvious because you don't see evil or good on the periodic table of elements, right? You don't see evilium or goodium, right? You don't see these kind of things, in terms of being an actual object in and of themselves. There's no material form for these things. And so the only option left is like their mental phenomena. They're things related to the phenomena of how we process reality, right? There's a famous philosopher that actually said, his name is Marcus Singer, he says, if something is really evil, it can't be necessary, and if it really is necessary, it can't be evil. So going back to theology, right? Going back to the soul making, which is the argument that I'm making for why the angels and the angel code are based off of. One of the philosophers from the medieval age, right? So Middle Ages, his name was Saint Augustine, and he viewed evil as a privation of good. He didn't believe that evil was created because it would deconstruct the presumption that God was a perfect being, right? And then there's another philosopher by the name of Irenaeus who has another similar argument for soul making, and he said that God made humans imperfect, and that this is therefore partially responsible for the existence of evil. To make humans perfect would take away their freedom to live in accordance with God's will, and so by creating imperfect humans, individuals are then given the chance to develop and grow through the soul making process, which I alluded to before. This idea that evil exists whether it's in our mind or not, and that it's used to make us better people. So now, going into the end context pieces of evidence that we have from the Dragon Ball story, let's talk about the Resurrection F, right? Resurrection F, what did Whis do? Well, he didn't actually intervene, like he didn't physically fight Golden Frieza, but what he did do was he used his time reversal, which is taboo for the gods, as Beerus and other characters have explained, but Whis did not actually intervene in the sense that he did not actually fight Golden Frieza. It was ultimately Goku who did. So this is still maintaining the neutrality that angels are supposed to have. And then when we talk about Gowasu, who's a character from the Goku Black Arc, the Kaioshin of, I believe, Universe 10, His job, again, as he explained to Zamasu, was they're supposed to watch over the mortal realm. They're supposed to watch over their universe and help life grow, whether it's through knowledge, whether it's through training, when we talk about martial arts, right? That is the job of the Kaioshin, the gods of creation. And Zamasu wanted to actually intervene, which is also taboo for the Kaioshins, a reoccurring pattern. In summary, really, the jobs of the Kaioshins and the Destroyers, including the Angels, is to watch over the mortal realm with whatever assigned tasks that they have. You can partake in the social rituals, whether they be food, games, festivities. You can provide knowledge and techniques, which is what Whis and Beerus and other Kaioshins have done, but you cannot actually physically solve the problem, whether it's a bad guy or some evil foe, right? The characters themselves have to be the ones to do that, right? To grow and develop, either in terms of strength or in terms of, moral behavior. And the Broly movie, Whis did not help Goku, right? All he did was danced around Broly using Ultra Instinct, waiting for Goku and Vegeta to solve the problem, which was the fusion into Gogeta. And then in the Moro arc, spoilers if you haven't read it, if you want to skip to the next part of this video, that's fine. In the case of Beerus, the reason they let him join the Galactic Patrol was because it was a mortal organization with a moral imperative, right? It had a reason for existence. And this reason was to help save and secure civilizations, to help save, populations in the universe from evil people like Frieza and other dangerous foes. But Beerus joined the organization to, at least from the Grand Priest's point of view, it was to teach Beerus that yes, mortals are capable of growth, but again, we still must not intervene. Beerus, though, again, would be conflicted with this principle, with this teaching, and he would eventually break the angelic law, which was the cause of his demise. And then later in the Moro arc, Whis again only intervened when Beerus decided to use his full power, right, which is a violation of angel laws. The reason being is because by them using their full power, they're potentially disrupting the natural order of things, right? We've already seen some of the abilities that angels have, which is time reversal and things of that nature. We don't even know what else Whis and the other angels are capable of. Hence why using your full power might be a problem, right? And then in the fight with Moro, all Whis did was, again, provide knowledge to Goku on how to defeat Moro. He did not actually physically intervene in the fight other than to defend himself, which you're allowed to do, and he was suppressed. He wasn't using his full power. Whis told Goku the key to defeat, but Whis did not break the crystal. He did not intervene. It was up to Goku to solve the problems of his own universe. And then again, this is also spoilers if you haven't caught up to the Granolah arc. What is Whis doing? He's just teaching Goku how to use Ultra Instinct, not helping Goku with finding out what Granolah's true nature is. Whis was already aware of this with his staff, but he did not tell Goku, anything that could disrupt the natural flow of things. He only told Goku, yeah, there's a strong guy that appeared, and that's it. He didn't tell Goku the secret to defeating him or anything like that. All he did was he gave advice to Goku and Vegeta about their shortcomings and how to overcome them. Again, this falls into the knowledge part of what angels and other gods are allowed to do. So again, in summary, I believe that the veil of soul-making, or the soul-making theory found in Theodicy, is the explanation or the influences as to why gods and Dragon Ball function the way they do. Again, people always ask this question of why the gods don't intervene when there's some big bad that can disrupt the entire universe, and this is the reason why. Because at the end of the day, it's mortals that have to overcome their own shortcomings, their own problems, not the problem of the gods. But then, that could lead to other problems. But for the purpose of this video, I hope I kept you guys entertained, and I have plans to make other videos using the similar style, which is using philosophy. I'll see you guys again. Bye, guys.